All right, so tornadoes. I'm gonna have to keep going back and forth, but that's all right. Um, will the clicky thing work at least? Sorry. Aha. Okay, perfect. Um, so the goal of today is to talk about why tornadoes form, where tornadoes form, how they impact the environment, how they impact the people in the environment, um, as well as how we can stay safe. Like I said before, I'm dedicating more time to tornadoes than any of our other natural disasters just because this is probably the one that we will uh, encounter here in Indiana a little bit more often. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to touch on the other ones. I had, I, uh, not student taught, but like observed an eighth grade classroom one time. And the teacher was talking about natural disasters and weather patterns and all that. And he's like, okay, and hurricanes exist. You don't have to worry about that. And then just kept clicking. So I was like, whew, we're not going to do that. But I am going to dedicate a little bit more time. Plus, like, movie. So, what is a tornado? A tornado is a type of windstorm. Um, that is where most of the big impact extremeness comes from. Is the funnel of rotating air that starts out in a storm cloud and eventually touches Earth's surface. It doesn't have to always make direct impact with Earth's surface, but usually they don't make tornado status until they start doing serious damage. So as you can see, the tornado probably formed up here. A cloud that leads to a tornado is called a supercell. Um, so this giant cloud had enough wind or enough air rotating throughout it that eventually that funnel got swifter and swifter and swifter and swifter until eventually it hit the ground. Just like if you took two Coke bottles with the little like connector between them, spun one as that water spun around, it looked essentially just like this. The let's see, trying to think of what's on the next slide so I don't like overstep, but this funnel of rotating air is exactly that. Like there is a center of it, just like there is an eye of a hurricane. Let's not break into Hamilton songs, but just as there is a center of a hurricane, there's a center of a tornado. Tornadoes are just more tightly compact than hurricanes. Hurricanes usually cover a larger distance, but hurricanes also have that kind of calmer center. It's just not as noticeable as one in a hurricane would be, just because tornadoes tend to be more compact. So, how do tornadoes form? We're still really trying to figure it out. We know how wind moves. We know like the big like predecessors to tornadoes. We know how or like the scenarios in which they are more likely to form. We know that they do form when warm, humid air collides with cold, dry air. Um, so as warm air rises, it'll hit this cold air. The cold air is pushed down, and as it is pushed down, it will spin. Um, and that's without getting too deep into the physics of it all. A decent recount of how much we know. Like I said, we're still working to get our big predictors down to like a more like, okay, this is going to happen. This is when it's going to happen. But for now, we have scenarios when they are most likely to happen, and we warn accordingly. When I believe, yeah, so when things are sucked up by tornadoes, right? Um, they will follow this same wind pattern. So they will get sucked into the way the tornado is rotating, um, come up, and eventually just drop back down because they're too heavy for the tornado's winds to sustain. When we watch Twister, that'll kind of be one of the big like ohs that they do, because they will show the tornado throwing things in the opposite direction to which physics demands, um, or just kind of sucking things up and not having them come back down, or sucking things up in the wrong direction, which is kind of an interesting folly to find. But um, this warm, humid air and cold, dry air gives us kind of a clue as to where these tornadoes will form. So tornadoes can and have formed all over the earth, right? Every continent. They can happen anywhere, including Australia, Europe, Africa, Asia, South America. But we do have quite a few of them in the U.S., specifically in something called Tornado Alley. So Tornado Alley is a term used to describe the area in the U.S. where tornadoes are likely to occur. And everywhere you look, at any graphic you see, it's going to be a little bit different. Not everybody, there's not like a defined, like, this is the line for Tornado Alley. And it moves with each year, and it moves as the climate changes. But usually you'll see it in this general area. We see, in current weather patterns and current trends, it's actually moving this way just a little bit. Um, but we can see that we've got our cold, dry air coming down from Canada and our warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. And it is where those two meet, where our cold, dry air and our warm, humid air meet, that make tornadoes more likely to happen. So that is why we've got our little tornado alley right here, because we've got cold air from the north, warm air from the south, and they just kind of twist around each other right here. Oklahoma is usually like the go-to, like wherever Tornado Alley is depicted, Oklahoma is in it. I think, I've watched a couple storm documentaries, like extreme storm documentaries, and they all, like, if they name the top 5 like biggest tornado windstorms in the U.S., Oklahoma's got at least 2 or 3 of them, which is why it is almost always in Tornado Alley. But like I said, we are moving this way a little bit, and some depictions even have Indiana as a part of Tornado Alley, or just like a very, very close neighbor to it, which is why we see tornadoes here. It's the same kind of thing. Warm air coming up, cold air coming down. Michigan probably doesn't help, because cold air coming off of Lake Michigan, plus warm air coming down from the south, will probably have like a mini version of this right here. But it's also very seasonal. So depending on where you are in the world, whichever season tornadoes will happen in will likely differ. Like, tornadoes don't happen here at the same time that they happen in Africa. So when we talk about tornado damage, they can do anything from just like blow a couple branches down in the trees next door, to completely flattening houses, lifting cars, and tearing the bark off trees. They can be very, very harmful, very deadly. But most of the time, if somebody is to die in a tornado, it's not necessarily from being like lifted up and sucked out of their house, but being struck by flying debris that has been picked up. So that's usually the number one like hazard in a tornado, which is why whenever we do tornado drills, it's always duck and cover. If you were in elementary school, it was like curl up in a ball, cover your head, face the wall, because we're protecting our major organs from anything that would come flying at us, essentially. They're also relatively like precise. As you can see here, this like row of houses, there's like a row of houses here and a row of houses here, were completely flattened and like this house just has some like roof damage. This house looks almost fine. So they can come and go relatively quickly, and they can cause extreme damage in one area and leave like the next door neighbors. Like these houses over here would have even less damage. Um, it just depends on how big that funnel is. Yes, exactly. Like, was there any like super bad damage to his house? Yes. So whenever the tornado would have come through here, any power lines that were either buried or lifted here would be gone. And most of the time, emergency services are worried about maintaining like these houses right here as opposed to getting electricity up and running for the neighborhood. Also, if they don't have access to this kind of stuff, would be really hard to get it started or get it back together. Um, Fires are also a really big deal post tornadoes. You have to be very, very cautious. They always have like firemen or firefighters on site after a tornado because with all of you don't know what like electrical wiring was exposed. So you have to be very cautious about fire post tornadoes as well. Some other like damaged things. You can see this brick wall is just totally annihilated. But this is the picture that I wanted to show you. A tornado can pick up a 2x4 and send it through a car door. Um, this is why flying debris is such a big deal. This is why flying debris is the number one killer in tornadoes. Is because if the wind picks like just a board up or board off the side of a building, it can weaponize that very, very quickly. Which is why we always say duck and cover, get to low ground, all that stuff. Um, when we measure the the extent of a tornado, you've probably heard the F1, F2, F3, F4, F5s. From 1971 to 2007, we used the Fujita scale, um, which was created to measure and classify tornadoes based on the wind speed and the damage that they caused. So we couldn't necessarily, so a tornado with, like, whew, sorry, brain short circuited. The amount of damage that is done by a tornado is used to classify it. So a F2 tornado in a cornfield could do like F3, F4 level damage in a city, which is why we kind of got rid of this Fujita scale in 2007. And we got the advanced Fujita scale or enhanced Fujita scale, which is just an expansion. Um, and this is the one that is currently used in the US. So we use damage, wind speed, and destruction. So wind speed is a lot more condensed than the last one. You can see these numbers are slightly off. Where an F5 was 261 plus, and F5 is now just 200 plus. Um, and sometimes it's very, very hard to gauge wind speed if we don't have stuff out there to measure wind speed. So damage is something that they rely on a lot heavier than wind speed if they can't necessarily measure it, which is why tornadoes in cities tend to get higher ratings than tornadoes in the middle of nowhere. So we've got an F0 or an EF0 where we get some siding kind of loosened up, tree branches fall, and then we get an F1. An F1 tornado can strip a roof off a house, can pick up mobile homes and turn them over, and damage the exterior of a house. An F2 has considerable damage. We're talking roofs torn off, mobile homes destroyed, large trees uprooted. If you've ever seen a tree uprooted, it can literally like topple over and then all of the roots are standing up straight. It's actually kind of cool. Severe tornadoes or an F3 tornadoes is multi-storied homes, buildings, trains, cars lift up the ground. This is 136 to 165 miles an hour. An F4 tornado is very extreme. We're talking cars thrown around willy-nilly, entire houses just leveled to nothing. So this one right here would have probably been an F4, maybe an extreme F3, but probably an F4. And an F5 tornado is destruction of all infrastructure. We're talking nothing left behind. So these EFs, or sometimes you might still hear them as F1, F2, F3, F4, F5s, is how we measure tornadoes, and it's usually all about the damage they cause. I got some more pictures here. Like I said, F0, we've got some trees, maybe something knocks over on a house, nothing too crazy. F1 tornadoes can rip some of the siding off of this house to take this mobile home and turn it over. F2, we've got like a roof that's almost completely gone. F3, we've got homes with weak foundations blown away. F4, we've got constructed homes that are just completely leveled. And then finally, our F5s, there's like nothing left. And I can post this on Canvas if you wanted like a closer look at the pictures. So this is probably, like, if you get one thing out of this lecture, relatively important. I still get watches and warnings mixed up. So the National Weather Service, or whenever you are driving down the road or your phone just goes meh, meh, like really, really loud and it scares you. That is the National Weather Service, who has these safety precautions in place to let the public know, regardless of where they are, that a danger is imminent. So a tornado watch is when a tornado is possible. So they are watching for a tornado. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take cover, but you should be thinking about where you need to be and regularly checking updates. So if you live someplace that doesn't have access to a tornado shelter, or if you have to go a very long way to get to a place that's safe, watches would like be like, okay, maybe we should start like gathering stuff together. And a tornado warning means that there is one that is happening. So this is like a take shelter immediately kind of situation. They also say a tornado is happening or imminent. So if they see a funnel cloud forming over a populated area, they might call a warning as well, just to make sure that people get to where they need to be safely. So that's the difference between watch and warning. Watch means it could happen. Warning means it has already happened or is about to happen. So, oh my goodness, we are not in Tippecanoe County. I don't know why my brain went there. So if you see one of the scrolling little things on the news, I don't know. When I was little, we used to watch the little scroll bars on the news to see who got 2-hour delays. Okay, making sure that was still a thing. Those little scroll bars at the bottom of the news will also tell you which counties have a watch or warning issued. So you're just sitting there waiting, watching through the alphabet. If you're in the car, a lot of times radio stations will have that really, really loud beep. They'll say watch or warning. Sometimes it's just a test. And I know one time I was driving from Lafayette to here, and emergency weather warning came on. Not for this county, but for the county I have a friend living in. I called him. I was like, "Yo, so there's a tornado warning." He goes, "Oh my goodness!" And then like looked outside and it was hailing, really, really bad. He didn't even notice, but was able to like take cover because of those kind of things. So sometimes phones will go off. I don't know. I've had phones that don't go off with extreme weather warnings. I've had phones that do go off with extreme weather warnings. But radios almost always do, and the news will always keep you updated. So that's the difference between watches and warnings. We're going to go through tornado safety inside and outside. I know this is a lot, but we can kind of summarize it together. I would highlight it or underline it, but my pens don't work. So if you are inside, so tornado safety inside, go to a basement or an inside room without windows. preferably on the lowest floor. We talked about exactly, which is why if you don't have a safe room or a basement or cellar, it's just an internal room. So a hallway or a bathroom that doesn't have windows. For added protection, people talk about hiding under like heavy tables or workbenches. When I was a kid, it was grab a mattress, go to the bathtub, cover the bathtub with a mattress. Because the whole goal is to cover your body with something that will protect you and to protect your head. Because, like I said, the biggest issue, the biggest danger with riding out a tornado is getting hit by debris, which is why I cover our heads. So here, we are both on an external wall and on the second floor. So in this case, I believe we will walk down the stairs into the auxiliary gym if we needed someplace that was safer. Because it is both on the main level and doesn't have exterior windows. We'd line up against the wall. There's hallways like surrounding it. So we'd also line up there. And then there's always the triangle of safety. I'm not going to demonstrate it because I don't want to get back on the floor. But the on your knees, head towards the wall triangle protects your internal organs, protects your head from anything that could fall. So yeah, if you're home, get to the safest place possible, or at least have like a plan. When I was little, my parents, we didn't have a cellar or a basement or a very stable infrastructure in our house. They would get us up in the middle of the night and drive to a like a car wash, like a do-it-yourself car wash, and just park and ride it out. Don't think that was the safest decision, but it's what I remember doing as like a baby. But also like my parents were super young. But like that was always something, and I mean, I guess that works, but also like in the outside idea, if you are outside during a tornado, get inside is the number one like advice given, or seek shelter in a depression or a ditch in an area with little to no trees. So if you are outside, not necessarily in a car, but if you're outside hiking, maybe at a sports practice that is on a field far away, or just going for a walk and you can't get inside, the best bet is to get into a depression or a ditch, and just kind of assume a protective position there. If you can angle yourself away from trees, get to an area without trees. That is also, literally. But that is the recommended thing that you do. Mainly because when a tornado skates over an area, if you are in like a little a ditch under that area, the tornado doesn't have enough lift to get you up out of that hole. Highway, or there is a lot of people tend to park under highway overpasses. Not a super great idea because tornadoes can rip those things apart, and also create vacuums, kind of suck people out of those. So go to a ditch a decent ways away from the highway overpass, in case if that is ever a case. And there's tornado safety in a car. Do not try to run a tornado in your car. Don't try to outrun it. If you can see it in the distance, like way, way off in the distance, and you can turn around and go, do that. A lot of tornadoes don't really go faster than 60 miles an hour. But still, for the sake of not getting your car hit by flying debris, don't go chasing down a tornado. Don't try to outrun a tornado. If you can get to safety, get to safety. If you do see a tornado is really, really close, stop your vehicle. Do not get under your vehicle. I don't know where that information came from. A lot of apparently in like the 70s or 80s. That's what they said. Or like it's the first idea is to get the shelter, and the first shelter that you see is your car. Tornado can pick up your car and drop your car back down. Do not get under your car. The best advice is to stay in the car with the seatbelt on, putting your head down below the windows and covering your head or hands with anything possible. That way, if the tornado does pick up your car, as long as it doesn't like pick it up and throw it, if it was like an F5, F6 tornado, if it was an F1, F2, F3, it might spin it around a little bit, pick it up and drop it a couple feet, but nothing that wouldn't be like a mild to moderate car crash, which is why they want you to stay in your car with the airbags and the seatbelts. If you can safely get to if you can safely get noticeably lower than the level of the roadway, leave your car and lie in that area, covering your head with your hands. So, there's a very big ditch and you see a tornado coming, you can get out of your car, leave your car, and go lay in that ditch. But hopefully that will not have to happen. Like I said, if you see a tornado that's like obviously a couple miles away, you can see which direction it's going, you can turn around and go the other way. But if a tornado is coming right at you, try to seek shelter. Don't try to outrun it. All right. I believe I have an exit ticket. Let me triple check that. I went a lot quicker. Apparently, I'm not as chatty about tornadoes today. That's not this class. Oh no, I don't have an exit ticket. So take this time if you still have your natural disaster safety sheet that I handed out on Friday. Go ahead and use this time to fill that out because you have the information to do so now. I will be collecting those and redistributing those, so please fill those out. If you need an extra, I'm sure I have an extra somewhere. If you would prefer a virtual copy, I can put it on Canvas if you need it.